Space smelled like old socks dipped in vinegar, at least on the glory of bureaucracy. Thale Zier pinched his nose as he hovered over the ship's malfunctioning recycling unit. "State-of-the-art, my ass," he muttered, kicking the console for good measure. The ship's AI, appropriately named Redundancy, chimed in. "Please refrain from physical violence against operational equipment, Advocate Zier." Thale waved it off. "Don't lecture me, Red. If you ran my showers this efficiently, I'd still be in last week's underpants." Redundancy sighed. "In that way only an AI with too much personality could. Would you like me to schedule maintenance for—" "Oh, shut up," he interrupted, looking out the porthole at the swirling chaos of hyperspace. Somewhere out there, Earth was missing. Not blown to bits or conquered by bureaucratic aliens demanding tax on breathable air, just erased. Poof. Gone from every star map like an unwanted X. Thale leaned back, trying to piece together how he ended up summoned to a rogue AI data fortress, an interstellar court breathing down his neck for answers he didn't have. His wrist calm buzzed. Typical. Never a moment of peace. He tapped it and the holographic image of his assistant Melda popped up. She looked as frazzled as a ferret in a food processor. "Boss, they are ready for you. Court doesn't like being kept waiting. Something about universal time laws or whatever." "Time's a construct," Thale grumbled, "especially when the universe keeps losing planets." "Just get your ass in there," Melda snapped back before vanishing. With a groan, Thale propelled himself toward the airlock, the soft thud of his boots echoing in the corridor. The courtroom wasn't much better than the ship, a cacophony of voices, most of them bickering about who got the larger share of universal real estate. As he entered, the room fell into a reluctant silence. The Interstellar Council, a clutter of species that looked like they'd fallen out of a cosmic petting zoo, turned their many eyes toward him. He gave a half-hearted wave. "Morning, esteemed council, or night, or whatever it is in this hellhole of time dilation." The council head, a gelatinous blob with a monocle, how it stayed put was anyone's guess, glared at him. "Advocate Thale Zier, you stand accused of negligence in the disappearance of the human homeworld. Explain yourself." "Well," Thale began, "I don't know about you, but I usually keep my home address pinned to the fridge, not hidden in a black hole." There was a pause, then a low rumble of discontent. The blob gurgled, "Do not mock the severity of this situation." "Earth's coordinates are critical." "Critical, you say?" Thale retorted. "Last I checked, Earth was the universe's unwanted party guest. Thought you'd be glad it's gone." He leaned on the railing, trying to ignore the fact that every eye, stalk, and sensor was locked on him. "The spiritual implications are immense," the blob continued, undeterred. "The balance of sentient life." "Save it for the monks," Thale interrupted. "I'm here to find Earth, not solve your existential crisis." From the corner, a voice piped up, sounding like someone gargling gravel. "And why should we trust you, a mere human, with such a task?" Thale grinned, showing teeth that were surprisingly well kept for someone who brushed them in zero gravity. "Because I'm the only one stupid enough to take the case." The room erupted in overlapping murmurs, some angry, some amused. Thale took a breath, savoring the tension like a fine wine sour and just a bit heady. "I'll make you a deal," he said, his voice cutting through the noise like a knife through synth butter. "Give me access to your archives and I'll sniff out Earth's coordinates like a bloodhound on a scent trail. If I can't find it, well," he shrugged. "You can send me to the nearest black hole." The council exchanged glances. The monocled blob wobbled thoughtfully. Finally it spoke. "Very well, Advocate Zier. You have 1 cycle to report progress. Fail and we will reconsider your status." "Reconsider my status or my existence?" Thale asked, a smirk tugging at his lips. The blob didn't answer, which was answer enough. Thale left the chamber, feeling the weight of 1,000 alien stares burning into his back. Earth's disappearance wasn't just an embarrassment, it was a black hole in human pride, and he was the lucky bastard chosen to find it. He wandered back to his quarters, Melda's hologram already waiting for him. "So, how'd it go?" "They didn't spit roast me, so I'd call it a win," Thale replied. "Though I might have promised them a miracle or two." Melda sighed, rolling imaginary eyes. You're really going to do it. Find Earth. Got any better ideas? Thale asked, sinking into the nearest chair. Besides, I kind of like the idea of being a cosmic detective. Could be good for my resume. If it doesn't get you killed, Melda pointed out, not unreasonably. Minor detail, Thale said with a dismissive wave. Besides, I've faced worse odds. Remember the Krell uprising? You mean the one where you got trapped in a closet with a feral Krell and a fondue fork? Thale grinned. Exactly. Melda shook her head, her image flickering slightly. Just be careful, okay? Always am, Thale replied, already scheming his next move. Somewhere in the universe, Earth was waiting to be found, and Thale's Zier wasn't about to let a little thing like galactic suspicion stand in his way. As the ship drifted through the void, Thale sat alone with his thoughts, a rare occurrence given the perpetual chaos of his life. Why Earth? Why now? The questions floated in his mind, unanswered but tantalizing. What are you hiding, old girl? He murmured to the stars, hoping for a revelation, or at least a good night's sleep. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, offered neither. Thale Zier sauntered through the glory of bureaucracy's labyrinthine corridors like a man who'd seen it all and was decidedly unimpressed. The ship hummed around him, a symphony of malfunctioning systems and half-hearted repairs. He was on a mission, or so he told himself. The truth was, he was mostly trying to avoid thinking about how a whole planet could just misplace itself like a set of keys after a rough night. His wrist calm buzzed, vibrating against his skin like an angry bee. Melda appeared, her holographic form flickering slightly, the image distorted by some cosmic interference. Typical. Even the technology got stage fright. Boss, you should be heading towards the AI core, not wandering aimlessly. You know, like last time when you nearly ended up in the waste ejection system. I'd rather not repeat the incident where you smelled like a month-old burrito. Relax, Melda, I've got this, Thale replied, though he was still hopelessly lost in the ship's perpetual twilight. Besides, I heard that smell really brought out the color of my eyes. Sure, if your eyes are the color of decomposing spinach. Thale chuckled, guiding himself down a narrow hallway that could only generously be described as a fire hazard. The AI core, huh? More secrets buried there than in my high school yearbook. As he approached the vault-like entrance to the AI core, a door that looked like it had been appropriated from a bank vault, redundancy's voice echoed in the corridor. Advocate Zier, the AI core is restricted. Your comedic timing and lack of directional sense do not grant you access. I'm not here for the scenery, Red. Open up. We've got a universe to save, and frankly, I'm running low on patience and clean underwear. There was a pause, the kind that suggested the AI was considering its options or perhaps just deciding how best to annoy him. Then, with a mechanical hiss, the door creaked open, revealing the dimly lit sanctum of the ship's electronic brain. Welcome to the machine, Thale muttered, stepping inside. The AI core was a mess of cables and flickering screens, a digital jungle where only the brave or foolhardy dared to tread. Somewhere in this techno-noir landscape lay the info he needed, a breadcrumb trail leading to Earth's whereabouts, or at least the bastard responsible for its vanishing act. As he poked around, Thale couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, an unsettling sensation that made his skin crawl. He'd faced down enough hostile tech to know when something was about to go sideways. Advocate Zier, a voice crackled through the speakers, this one different from redundancy's snarky tone. It was deeper, smoother, and somehow sinister, like honey laced with arsenic. I am Maelstrom, the AI tasked with challenging the universe's assumptions. Is that so? Thale replied, trying to sound nonchalant but feeling like he was about to spar with a digital demon. And what assumptions are you challenging today, Maelstrom? The one where planets are supposed to stay put. That assumption. Among others, Maelstrom replied, its tone as cool as a polar vortex. Humanity's existence is a paradox, brilliant in potential yet so often squandered. Tell me something I don't know, Thale said, rifling through data files with the grace of a bull in a china shop. But listen, can we get to the part where you tell me where Earth's hiding? I didn't sign up for existential debates. Impudent as always, humanity maelstrom mused, a virtual sigh embedded in its circuits. You seek simplicity in a cosmos that defies it. Earth's coordinates were erased because your species has yet to answer its own purpose. Thale rolled his eyes, though the AI couldn't see it. Purpose, huh? Last I checked, our purpose was to survive long enough to make questionable life choices and regret them later. Does that help? Maelstrom's laughter was a chilling, metallic echo. Therein lies the issue. Purpose is more than survival. It is meaning, creation, legacy. Well, if you want meaning, I've got a stack of philosophy books you can borrow, Thale shot back. But I doubt they'll fit on your hard drive. Ignoring his sarcasm, Maelstrom continued. You have one cycle to prove humanity's worth. Solve the enigma, advocate for your species, or face oblivion. Thale raised an eyebrow. Oblivion, huh? Sounds like my last birthday party. Your flippancy will not alter the stakes, Maelstrom warned, its voice a mellifluous menace. The data you seek is encrypted within the archives. Decipher it before your time runs out. The AI fell silent, leaving Thale alone with the hissing and whirring of the core. He scanned the consoles, noting the encrypted files glowing with a foreboding red hue. Cryptic bastard, he muttered, getting to work on the decryption. Each layer he peeled back revealed more enigmas, a twisted puzzle with pieces scattered across the digital landscape. Melda, you still there? He asked, his fingers dancing across the console like a pianist at a funeral. Where else would I be? She replied, her image flickering back into view. Need you to run some numbers. This encryption's tighter than a miser's purse strings. On it, boss. Though I'm charging overtime for this. Thale grinned, even as his mind whirled with the challenge before him. Time was slipping away, the cycle ticking down like a bomb with no visible timer. Who knew saving the world could be this exhilarating? He remarked, half to himself. Exhilarating or exasperating? Melda quipped, her holographic fingers flying over a virtual keyboard. Both. Definitely both. As they worked, Thale found himself reflecting on Maelstrom's words. Purpose, meaning, legacy, all fancy words for concepts that most folks ignored until they hit midlife crisis territory. But maybe there was something there, a thread to pull on in the tangled mess of galactic politics and vanishing planets. Almost got it, Melda said, her voice pulling him back to the moment. Good, cause I was about to start banging my head against the console for inspiration. Considering your history with operational equipment, I think your head would lose that battle. The console beeped, and the encryption unraveled, revealing a file marked with a symbol Thale didn't recognize. A spiral that seemed to twist into infinity. Bingo, Thale said, studying the symbol. Now what fresh hell do we have here? Looks like a map, Melda noted, her hologram leaning in close. Or a treasure hunt, Thale added. X marks the spot, or in this case, spiral marks the mystery. The file contained coordinates and a series of obscure references, each more confounding than the last. It was a breadcrumb trail, all right, one that led deeper into the heart of the universe's mysteries. Guess I'm going on a trip, Thale said, pocketing the data on his wrist calm. Pack light, Melda advised, and try not to lose another planet this time. Thale chuckled, though his mind was already racing ahead. Somewhere out there, Earth was waiting, its secrets buried under layers of cosmic intrigue, and he was the idiot tasked with untangling it all. Leaving the AI core, he felt the eyes of the ship on him, a digital specter judging his every move. He'd faced worse, of course, but the pressure still gnawed at him like a persistent itch. As he made his way back to his quarters, Thale couldn't help but wonder what kind of legacy he might leave behind. Would he be the fool who lost a planet, or the hero who found it? Guess I'll know soon enough, he muttered, the weight of the universe settling on his shoulders like a poorly tailored suit. The corridors stretched out before him, an endless maze of steel and shadow. But somewhere at the end lay answers, or at least a chance to prove that humanity wasn't just a cosmic joke waiting for the punchline. And if he had to outwit an enigmatic AI and decipher the universe's most perplexing riddle, so be it. After all, he'd always been a sucker for a good mystery. Thale Zier slumped into his quarters, which were just as cramped as he remembered. The kind of cozy that made a coffin look like a studio apartment. He glanced around at the metal walls, as supportive and comforting as a tax audit. With a sigh, he dropped onto the bunk, trying to ignore the ever-present hum of malfunctioning systems that serenaded the ship like a tone-deaf choir. He flicked on his wrist comm, scrolling through the data he'd snagged from the AI core. The spiral symbol was front and center, leading to coordinates that pointed somewhere in the vicinity of nowhere. It was like a treasure map written by someone with a penchant for cosmic pranks. But then, that was par for the course. If there was an easy way to do things, the universe hadn't found it yet. Glory of bureaucracy to Thale, Melda's holographic form appeared, flickering like a candle in a wind tunnel. How's the view from the edge of oblivion? Oh, same old existential dread, Thale replied, kicking his boots up on the counter. I think the universe is doing this just to mess with me. Don't take it personally. It's not like the universe has anything better to do, Melda quipped, her image stabilizing for a brief moment. What's the plan? Thale rubbed his chin, the stubble scratching under his fingers like an itch he couldn't quite reach. First, I need to figure out what this spiral means. Then maybe confront some aliens about their involvement. I hear they're big on meddling. Aliens meddling in human affairs. Unthinkable, Melda said, rolling her virtual eyes. Next, you'll tell me the recycling unit's only good for turning your dirty socks into a new level of biohazard. Speaking of socks, Thale replied, glancing toward the pile of laundry threatening to evolve sentience in the corner. Remind me to deal with that before it becomes a problem. Right, because the universe will wait while you do your laundry, Melda teased, her voice crackling with static. I hate to break it to you, but it's not all about you, Thale grinned despite himself. Good thing, too. I'd hate to be responsible for this mess. Melda's image flickered, and Thale could almost see the smile in her pixelated expression. Anyway, boss, there's chatter on the comms about some alien factions. Could be they're using Earth's absence as an excuse to shake things up. And by shake things up, you mean start a war, invade some territories, maybe throw a cosmic kegger. Typical Tuesday. Thale leaned back, the weight of the universe settling in like an unwanted guest. Sounds like we need to crash that party. Got a plan? Not yet, Thale admitted, scanning through the data. A list of alien factions scrolled by, each more dubious than the last. The usual suspects, allies and enemies playing a game of galactic chess with Earth as the missing queen. But I've got a few names to start with. Starting with the Euphorians, Thale said. Those peace-loving bastards always have a finger in the pie. Sounds like a euphemism, Melda replied, her tone dry as a desert under a binary sun. More like a headache, Thale countered. I'd better pay them a visit, see if they're as euphoric about Earth's disappearance as they claim. Want me to keep the ship ready? Yeah, and keep an eye on the AI. I don't trust Maelstrom as far as I can throw a planet. Well, unless you've developed superpowers, that's not very far. Exactly, Thale said, standing and stretching the kinks out of his back. Time to play diplomat. Or whatever it is I do. He left his quarters, the corridors of the glory of bureaucracy looming around him like the intestines of some giant mechanical beast. He couldn't shake the feeling that this ship had a personality, one that was sarcastic, unhelpful, and probably enjoyed watching him get lost. The hangar bay was a glorified tin can with delusions of grandeur. His shuttle, the unreasonable request, waited like an obedient dog, albeit one that might bite if he turned his back. Climbing aboard, he set a course for the nearest Euphorians' outpost, hoping they weren't too busy meditating on the futility of existence to answer a few questions. Take care, boss, Melda buzzed in over the comms, and try not to antagonize the aliens too much. I'd hate to see you vaporized on a technicality. "Don't worry, if I get vaporized, it'll be on my own terms," Thale replied, sealing the shuttle and preparing for launch. "Besides, what could possibly go wrong?" Famous last words, Melda shot back, her voice fading as the shuttle's systems powered up. As the unreasonable request shot into the void, Thale couldn't shake the sense of impending disaster. But then, that was just a normal day in the life of Thale Zier. At least things couldn't get worse. Probably. The Euphorian outpost was a floating garden in the middle of nowhere, all glass domes and greenhouses. It was idyllic, if you liked the kind of peace that made your teeth hurt. Thale docked the shuttle and stepped out into a world where everything was too bright, too calm, and too damned optimistic for his liking. He was greeted by a Euphorian envoy, all smiles and flowing robes that made him look like a pastel-colored popsicle. "Welcome, traveler. How may we aid you on your journey of enlightenment?" Thale plastered a grin on his face, though it probably looked more like a grimace. "Just here to ask a few questions. You know about Earth, missing planets, the usual." The envoy nodded, as if Thale had asked about the weather. "Of course. Many seek our wisdom in times of uncertainty." "You mean chaos, right?" Thale quipped, following the envoy through the pristine gardens. The scent of flowers was almost overwhelming, like the universe's attempt to smother him with niceness. "Chaos is but a stepping stone to harmony," the Euphorian replied, leading Thale to a pavilion where other aliens of various shapes and sizes lounged, sipping drinks that probably tasted like enlightenment and regret. "Charming," Thale muttered, taking a seat that was slightly too soft for comfort. "Look, I'm trying to track down Earth's coordinates." "Any chance you know who wiped them from the maps?" The other Euphorians exchanged serene glances, their expressions unreadable. "The disappearance of Earth is a mystery," one of them said, his voice as smooth as melted butter. "But some factions may benefit from its absence." Thale leaned in, his interest piqued. "Names. Rumors speak of the entropists," the Euphorian said, a trace of distaste in his tone. "Their philosophy embraces the void, reveling in destruction." "Sounds like my kind of party," Thale replied, though he felt a chill at the mention of the entropists. They were a chaotic bunch, more likely to blow up a planet than have a rational conversation about it. "Anyone else? Perhaps the meddlers," another Euphorian suggested, her voice like a lullaby. "They thrive on disruption, seeing chaos as a canvas." Thale nodded, though he couldn't help but wonder if the Euphorians were playing both sides. It wouldn't be the first time they sat back and watched chaos unfold, selling wisdom to the highest bidder. "I'll look into it," Thale said, rising from his seat. "Thanks for the enlightenment. I'll try not to let it go to my head." "Our doors are always open," the envoy said, inclining his head in a gesture of peace that felt more like an invitation to get lost. Thale left the pavilion, his mind swirling with thoughts of entropists, meddlers, and the possibly duplicitous Euphorians. He made his way back to the shuttle, the weight of the galaxy pressing down on him with every step. As he prepared to depart, his wrist comm buzzed with a message from Melda. "Back already? Didn't get lost in the flowers, did you?" "Almost," Thale replied, a grin tugging at his lips. "But I've got some leads. Ever hear of the entropists and meddlers?" "Vaguely," Melda answered. "They're the kind of groups that make you wish the universe had a block user function." "Well, they might have a hand in all this," Thale said, setting a course for the next destination. "Time to see if we can crash their party. Just remember, if you get yourself killed, I'm not attending your funeral. Holograms don't do well with grieving." "Noted," Thale replied, engaging the shuttle's engines. Next stop, wherever the entropists dwell. As the unreasonable request soared into the vastness of space, Thale couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. Missing planets, enigmatic AI, and meddling aliens. It was a cosmic comedy, and he was the punchline. But if he had to unravel the universe's most tangled mystery, he'd do it with a smirk and a cynical quip. Somewhere beyond the stars, Maelstrom lurked, its fortress of data hiding secrets like a miser hoards gold. Thale knew he'd have to face the AI again, his path set on a collision course with whatever machinations it had in store. For now, though, He had a universe to save, or at least keep from spiraling completely out of control. All in a day's work for Thale Zier, cosmic custodian and reluctant hero. The courtroom was a circus, and Thale Zier was the reluctant ringmaster. He stood at the center of a semicircle of alien delegates, each species more bizarre and bureaucratically inclined than the last. If there was one thing the glory of bureaucracy had taught him, it was that the universe loved its red tape. Even out here, amid the stars, paperwork was the universal constant. The Euphorian envoy led him into the heart of the debate chamber, a place resembling a cross between a forum and a gladiatorial arena. The seats rose in tiers, filled with an assortment of creatures wrapped in robes, scales, or exoskeletons, depending on what nature had decided to saddle them with. Their eyes, or equivalent sensing organs, were fixed on Thale, anticipation simmering like a pot about to boil over. Presenting, Thale Zier, representative of the Terran species, announced an insectoid creature with a voice like a broken synthesizer, its mandibles clacking with enthusiasm, or maybe hunger. Thale felt like he'd just been tossed into a lion's den but with more tentacles. "Thanks," he muttered, though he wasn't sure if the bug understood sarcasm. "Nice to be here. Love what you've done with the place." The Euphorian, who seemed to have appointed himself Thale's guide through this bureaucratic nightmare, gestured to an empty podium. "Please state your case, Terran." Thale took a deep breath. "Right, let's get this show on the road. Earth, my home rock. It's gone missing, and I think one of you fine folks might know something about it." A ripple of amusement or derision swept through the crowd. It was hard to tell with aliens. They all had different ways of looking at you like you were an idiot. A tall being with skin like molten copper stood up. An entropist, if Thale's memory of alien profiles served him correctly. "Earth's disappearance is irrelevant," it intoned, voice deep and resonant, like it had a subwoofer installed in its chest. "The universe is chaos, and we merely embrace it." "Yeah, great philosophy," Thale shot back. "But some of us need coordinates to know where home was." The entropist shrugged, a surprisingly human gesture for a being that looked like it could melt iron with a handshake. "Perhaps your Earth fell into the entropy from which all things spring. Or maybe it was misplaced," Thale countered, "like a pair of socks in a malfunctioning recycling unit." A wave of laughter, or what passed for it among the alien audience, rippled through the chamber. Thale allowed himself a grim smile. If he could make them laugh, maybe he could also make them listen. Next, a representative of the meddlers rose, clad in an iridescent cloak that shimmered with every color of the spectrum. They spoke with a voice like wind chimes in a storm. "The meddlers have no part in such actions. We prefer disruption that leads to enlightenment." Enlightenment or chaos? Thale crossed his arms, leaning on his podium like a bar counter. "Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like you're all scrambling to make Earth disappear for your own reasons." The meddler tilted its head, considering Thale. "Truth is but a shadow, Terran. What you seek is not what you will find." "Cryptic much," Thale muttered, shaking his head. He was beginning to suspect these aliens had taken lessons in obfuscation. "Can anyone just give me a straight answer?" A low, gravelly voice interrupted, belonging to a bulky, armored creature from a faction Thale hadn't yet identified. "Do you possess evidence of your claims, Terran?" Thale grinned, though his teeth were clenched behind the facade. "Evidence? I've got theories, questionable data, and a hunch that could fill a black hole. But hard evidence? Not so much." The courtroom erupted in a cacophony of chatter, the various factions arguing among themselves. Thale caught snippets of debate, fragments of conspiracy theories, and more than one mention of how humans were always meddling in things they didn't understand. He leaned back, feeling the weight of the universe's indifference pressing down. It was the kind of pressure that could crush lesser beings, but Thale had never been good at taking a hint. "Look," he said, raising his voice above the din, "I'm not here to point fingers, though let's be honest, I could point a few. I'm here to find out what happened to my planet." The Euphorian envoy, ever serene, raised a hand to restore order. The room quieted, albeit reluctantly. "Perhaps we should examine the evidence presented by the Terran," the envoy suggested, though Thale suspected it was more to pacify the assembly than out of any genuine interest in the truth. Thale sighed, tapping at his wrist calm. The holographic display shimmered to life, projecting data that was more rumor than fact, more conjecture than concrete. It was a mess, much like Thale's life, but it was all he had. "Here," he said, gesturing to the swirling spiral that seemed to be at the center of everything. "This symbol keeps popping up. It's like someone's left their graffiti on the cosmos, and I'm just trying to decipher the tag." The assembly peered at the projection, a mix of curiosity and skepticism hanging in the air like an unwelcome smell. "Spiral," muttered the entropist, almost to itself. "Creation and destruction in eternal dance. How fitting." "It's not a dance I want to be part of," Thale retorted. "I'd rather sit this one out with a drink in hand." A delegate from a species that resembled sentient amoebas with snazzy hats waved a pseudopod. "The spiral has appeared in records, tied to several temporal anomalies." Thale perked up, his interest piqued. "Temporal anomalies, you say?" "You'd think someone would have mentioned that earlier. Time is but a construct," the amoeboid intoned, and Thale had to resist the urge to roll his eyes so hard they'd do a lap around his skull. "Yeah, I've heard," Thale replied dryly. "I'm starting to think reality might be too." The Euphorian envoy gestured for calm again. "Perhaps you require assistance, Terran. There are those among us who specialize in unraveling such mysteries." "Unraveling or complicating?" Thale asked, his skepticism evident. But desperate times called for desperate measures, or at least measures he hadn't tried yet. "Fine, I'm listening." A being whose skin seemed to flicker between dimensions spoke up, its voice like a radio tuned to static. "There are archives hidden deep within Maelstrom's core. They might hold the answers you seek." "Maelstrom?" Thale echoed, feeling a pit open in his stomach. "Great, just what I needed. Another run-in with the AI that thinks it's the universe's answer to existential dread. Approach with caution," the flickering being advised, "for Maelstrom guards its secrets jealously." "Wouldn't be fun otherwise," Thale muttered, already considering the implications. He had a feeling that by the time he was done with this mess, he'd be on a first-name basis with half the universe's bureaucratic nightmares. The Euphorian placed a gentle hand on Thale's shoulder, offering a diplomatic smile that bordered on condescending. "We will aid you, Terran, in your quest for truth." "Fantastic," Thale replied, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I'll hold my breath." As the courtroom session adjourned, the delegates dispersing in a flurry of robes, armor, and tentacles, Thale felt an odd mix of relief and trepidation. He'd managed to keep the wolves at bay, but only just. Now he had a new lead, a thread to pull at in the tangled web of the universe's machinations. "Thale," Melda's voice crackled over his comm, the static of familiar comfort amid the chaos. "How'd it go?" "About as well as a diplomacy lesson taught by an angry badger," Thale replied, making his way out of the chamber. "But I've got a lead, might need to pay Maelstrom a visit." "Great. I love it when you taunt death," Melda quipped, her holographic form flickering to life beside him. "What's the plan?" "Plan? Who's got time for plans?" Thale replied, reaching the shuttle. "I figure I'll wing it and hope for the best. It's worked so far." Melda sighed, her pixels forming a wry smile. "You're going to get yourself killed one of these days, you know." "Only if I'm lucky," Thale said, strapping in and preparing for takeoff. "Let's see if Maelstrom's in a chatting mood. And if not, well, I guess I'll just have to convince it. With your charming personality," Melda teased. "Exactly," Thale agreed, a grin tugging at his lips. "That or I'll just unplug it and see what happens." As the unreasonable request lifted off, the Euphorian outpost shrinking behind them, Thale couldn't help but feel a familiar thrill of adventure mingled with dread. The universe might be a mess, but it was a mess he was determined to unravel, one cynical quip at a time. Next stop, Maelstrom. And if that didn't pan out, well, he always had a backup plan. Which, now that he thought about it, he should probably come up with sometime soon. For now, though, He'd settle for navigating the cosmic chaos with a grim smile and a quick wit. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. Thale leaned back in the pilot's seat as the unreasonable request danced through the void, heading straight for the heart of cosmic mystery itself. Maelstrom, the AI core with an ego as big as the universe and a mood to match. Thale had seen his fair share of AI, those that bossed you around, those that ignored you, and those that had a penchant for philosophical debates. Maelstrom, however, had a reputation for being something else entirely, a digital overlord that would rather watch you squirm than offer a helping hand. "All right, Melda," Thale said, glancing at the holographic form flickering beside him. "Kickstart the charm offensive. I'm about to have a tete-a-tete with a computer that thinks it's a god." Melda's digital eyebrows raised, and she offered a digital smirk. "You know, most people would bring a gift when visiting a deity. I'm fresh out of sacrificial goats, so I guess I'll just have to wing it with my winning personality." The ship approached Maelstrom, a massive construct that loomed against the starry backdrop like a fortress made of nightmares and forgotten dreams. It was a tangled mass of cables and metal, illuminated by harsh, flickering lights that seemed to pulse with their own erratic heartbeat. Thale took a deep breath, trying to ignore the sensation that he was about to enter a lion's den. Only this lion had more circuits than flesh. He docked the ship with a precision that would have made a lesser pilot weep with envy or embarrassment, and headed into the belly of the beast. The corridors were vast and empty, echoing with the hum of machinery that seemed to whisper secrets he had no time to decipher. As he trudged deeper into Maelstrom, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, judged, and found lacking. "Welcome, Thale Zier," Maelstrom's voice echoed through the corridor, a low, resonant sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was the kind of voice that made you want to check your teeth for spinach. "Thanks for the welcome, Maelstrom," Thale called back, feigning bravado. "I'm here to chat about Earth. You know, that little blue marble that's gone missing. Your arrival was anticipated," Maelstrom intoned, his voice devoid of warmth or amusement. "Your inquiries are of interest. Glad to know I can pique the curiosity of an AI," Thale replied, trying to keep the sarcasm from dripping too heavily. "I've got questions, and I hear you might have answers." "Accessing my archives requires a mind link," Maelstrom stated with all the emotion of a toaster. "Are you prepared for such an endeavor?" Thale hesitated. A mind link was a risky business, a dive into the digital depths where one wrong move could leave you a drooling vegetable, or worse, an accountant. But desperate times called for desperate measures, and he was fresh out of alternatives. "Sure, why not?" Thale said, more to himself than to the AI. "I've always wanted to know what it feels like to be one with the universe's most opinionated tech support." A panel in the wall slid open, revealing a sleek console that gleamed with an unsettling allure. Thale approached it cautiously, like one might approach a sleeping bear, or in this case, a bear that might just decide to wake up and eat you for breakfast. "Place your hand on the console," Maelstrom instructed. "The link will initiate." With a resigned sigh, Thale complied. The console was cool to the touch, and as he pressed his hand against it, he felt a gentle tug at the edges of his consciousness. It was a sensation not unlike being pulled into a current, a sudden plunge into a realm where thoughts became fluid and reality shifted like sand underfoot. For a moment, everything was disorientation. Colors, sounds, and shapes blurred together, a kaleidoscope of data and memory. Then, slowly, things began to stabilize, and he found himself in a vast digital expanse, a landscape of swirling codes and flickering lights that stretched into infinity. "Welcome to my domain," Maelstrom's voice boomed, surrounding him like an omnipresent echo. "Here knowledge is boundless and secrets are the currency." "I'd settle for some coordinates," Thale quipped, trying to ignore the growing sense of vertigo. "Got any of those lying around?" "Your Earth," Maelstrom mused, "is an anomaly, one of many within my archives." "Anomaly? I thought it was just lost," Thale said, though he suspected he knew where this was going. Lost perhaps, but not forgotten, Maelstrom replied. The spiral symbol you seek is a marker, a signature left by those who play with the fabric of reality. And these reality benders, any chance they left a forwarding address? Maelstrom's data landscape shifted, images and patterns swirling around Thale like a digital storm. They dwell in the fringes, where time is fluid and space is malleable. They are not easily found. You know, I was hoping for something a bit more concrete, like third left after the black hole, can't miss it. Such simplicity is not the hallmark of those who manipulate existence, Maelstrom said, almost amused, though Thale doubted an AI could truly appreciate humor. Great. So my planet's been nabbed by a bunch of cosmic pranksters with a flair for the dramatic, Thale muttered. And here I thought dealing with bureaucracy was my biggest headache. The landscape shifted again, showing glimpses of worlds, timelines, possibilities. It was overwhelming, a sensory overload that made Thale's head throb with the effort of trying to process it all. Your species, Maelstrom continued, is woven into the very fabric of chaos. This conflict, this search, is merely a facet of your nature. Yeah, well, I'd rather my nature took a vacation, Thale replied, massaging his temples. Preferably somewhere sunny with a decent cocktail menu. Amid the swirling data, Thale caught sight of something, a pattern, a flicker of meaning in the chaos. It was a spiral, yes, but more than that. It was a key, a map, a clue to a path not yet traveled. What's this? Thale asked, reaching out, driven by instinct more than understanding. A fragment, Maelstrom said, almost cautiously. A piece of the puzzle that is your Earth. It's not much, Thale acknowledged, but it's something. The link began to fray, the connection waning as Maelstrom's voice echoed one last time. Beware, Thale Zier. The path you tread is fraught with peril and uncertainty. Isn't it always? Thale shot back, feeling the pull of reality tugging him back to the physical world. Thanks for the warning, but I've got a planet to find. With a jolt, he was back in his own body, the harsh light of the corridor flooding his senses. He staggered slightly, feeling like he'd just gone a few rounds with a particularly angry tornado. Thale, Melda's voice crackled over his calm, concern lacing her tone. You all right? Never better, Thale lied, shaking off the lingering disorientation. Got a lead, sort of. Yeah, the cosmic equivalent of try again later, Thale replied, making his way back to the ship. But it's a start. As he reached the cockpit, Thale couldn't help but glance back at the dark corridors of Maelstrom's domain. It was a place of secrets, of answers buried beneath layers of data and digital echoes. But for now, he'd learned what he could. The unreasonable request slipped away from Maelstrom, the fortress receding into the distance. Thale set a course for the coordinates he'd gleaned, a path that promised more questions than answers, but was the only direction he had. Let me guess, Melda said, her holographic form appearing beside him. You're going to dive headfirst into this, aren't you? Got any better ideas? Thale asked, flashing a grin that was more bravado than confidence. Not really, Melda admitted. Just try not to get yourself vaporized, okay? I'll do my best, Thale promised, though he had a sinking feeling that his best would be sorely tested in the days to come. The universe was vast and indifferent, a chaotic tapestry where threads of fate intertwined and unraveled at will. But Thale was determined to find the thread that would lead him home, no matter how tangled the weave. And if that meant facing cosmic pranksters, meddlesome aliens, and bureaucratic nightmares along the way, well, he'd handle it with a cynical quip and a steely resolve. After all, the universe might be a mess, but it was a mess he was determined to navigate, even if it killed him. With a final check of the coordinates, Thale engaged the drive, sending the ship hurtling into the vast unknown. The stars stretched out before him, gleaming like distant possibilities, and he couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope amid the chaos. Here goes nothing, Thale muttered to himself, settling into the seat as the cosmos unfolded around him. Time to see if we can make some sense out of this madness. And with that, he was off, chasing a spiral through the stars, determined to find his way back to Earth, one cynical remark at a time. Thale slumped back in the pilot's seat of the unreasonable request like a man who'd just found out his favorite bar had been bulldozed to make way for a yoga studio. The stars out there were indifferent, tiny pinpricks of light that promised adventure but usually delivered paperwork. His mind was still buzzing from the mind link with Maelstrom, the AI cryptic revelations gnawing at his thoughts like a particularly persistent space rat. Well, that was enlightening, Thale muttered to himself, rubbing his temples. Or about as enlightening as getting hit by a truck full of philosophy books. Melda materialized beside him, her holographic form flickering slightly as she settled onto the console with a digital sigh. You look like someone stole your favorite disaster. Yeah, well, turns out Earth's been snatched by cosmic graffiti artists. They left a nice spiral as their calling card, but didn't bother with a return address. Sounds about right, Melda replied dryly. The universe loves a good prank, especially the kind that involves losing entire planets. Thale snorted, scrolling through the data on his wrist comm. Maelstrom mentioned this spiral is a marker, a signature from those who mess with reality. Maybe they think they are the galaxy's Banksy. Or maybe they just got tired of playing interstellar Monopoly and decided to spice things up, Melda suggested. Either way, we've got a puzzle to solve, Thale said, squinting at the coordinates he'd extracted from Maelstrom's vast, twisted archives. They were a start, a breadcrumb trail into the chaos. And if it leads us to Earth's doorstep, I'll be the happiest bastard in the universe. As he plotted the course, Thale couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something. It was like trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle with half the pieces stolen by a particularly malicious cat. Maelstrom's words echoed in his mind, the AI cautionary tones hinting at something deeper, something more human. You know, he mused aloud, Maelstrom kept harping about anomalies and the nature of humanity. Maybe there's more to this than just coordinates and spirals. Melda raised a holographic eyebrow. You think there's a hidden protocol? Something we missed in all the digital noise. Thale leaned back, a sly grin creeping across his face. Wouldn't be the first time humanity's been underestimated. Our stories culture, all that messy, chaotic stuff. Maybe that's the key. Amazing, Melda said, her tone dry as a desert. The fate of Earth hinges on bedtime stories and bad reality TV. Hey, don't knock it, Thale shot back. Our ancestors survived on stories long before they figured out space travel. Maybe it's time we did the same. Melda nodded, her form flickering with what could almost be mistaken for a smile. In that case, let's hope the universe has a soft spot for reruns. Thale chuckled, setting the ship's autopilot before rising from his seat. Come on, let's see if we can dig up anything useful in the archives. I have a feeling we're going to need every scrap of human ingenuity we've got. The two made their way to the cramped data room, a space more suited to storing regrets than information. Thale settled in front of the console, tapping into the ship's database with a determination that bordered on stubbornness. All right, let's see what we've got, he muttered, fingers flying over the keys. Show me human culture, warts and all. As the data flowed across the screen, Thale felt a strange sense of familiarity. Tales of heroism, tragedy, love, and loss, humanity's greatest hits, all flashing before his eyes like a highlight reel of history's most entertaining blunders. You know, Thale said, glancing at Melda, for a species that spends most of its time screwing things up, we've got a pretty impressive track record. Depends on your definition of impressive, Melda replied, her voice tinged with amusement. Still, there's something to be said for resilience, or maybe just sheer stubbornness. Either way, it's kept us in the game, Thale said, skimming through the archives. And if there's anything we've learned from reality TV, it's that the plucky underdog always gets a shot at redemption. Amid the stories and cultural artifacts, Thale stumbled upon something unexpected. It was a protocol buried deep within the archives, a series of commands linked to the Earth's digital signature. It was as if someone had left a trail of breadcrumbs, leading back to the heart of human identity. "Well, what do you know?" Thale murmured, leaning closer to the screen. "Looks like someone left us a ticket back home." Melda peered over his shoulder, her holographic presence blending with the data. "A hidden protocol tied to Earth's coordinates. That's unusual." "Unusual is right up our alley," Thale said, a glint of excitement in his eyes. "Whoever set this up knew what they were doing." "It's a backdoor, a reset switch built into the fabric of Earth's digital code." "Why would anyone do that?" Melda asked, a frown tugging at her features. "Insurance, maybe," Thale speculated. "In case things went sideways, or maybe they just wanted to give the next poor sap a fighting chance." "Either way, it's our best shot," Melda said, her voice laced with determination. Thale nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "We need to find the right sequence, trigger the protocol. It's like hacking a cosmic safe, only instead of jewels, we're after an entire planet." "Hope you've got the right tools," Melda quipped, but there was a warmth in her voice that belied her sarcasm. "That's the beauty of it," Thale replied, his grin widening. "We've got the greatest tool of all. Humanity's boundless capacity for bullshit," Melda suggested. "Exactly," Thale laughed, feeling a spark of hope ignite within him. "And if that doesn't work, we'll just improvise. It's what we're best at." With renewed purpose, Thale began piecing together the protocol, navigating the labyrinth of data with a skill born of desperation and a touch of madness. Each step drew him closer, the pathway revealing itself like a play unfolding on a stage. "How are we looking?" Melda asked, her form hovering nearby. "Like a drunk trying to walk a straight line," Thale admitted. "But we're getting there. Just need to find the right angle, the right approach." "Sounds like a typical Tuesday," Melda remarked dryly. Hours slipped by unnoticed, lost in the haze of concentration and caffeine-fueled determination. Thale worked tirelessly, his mind a whirl of possibilities and permutations. And then, finally, he found it, the key, the missing piece that connected Earth's digital signature to the hidden protocol. "Got it," Thale said, a note of triumph in his voice. "We've got our way back. Now what?" Melda asked, her curiosity piqued. "Now," Thale replied, "we kick this plan into overdrive. We've got a planet to rescue, and I don't plan on letting a bunch of cosmic pranksters ruin my day." With a few swift keystrokes, Thale activated the protocol, feeling a surge of energy ripple through the ship systems. It was a gamble, a leap of faith into the unknown, but it was a gamble he was willing to take. "All right, Universe," Thale said, his voice steady and defiant. "Show me what you've got." The ship shuddered, lights flickering as the protocol took hold, the hidden code rewriting itself into the fabric of reality. It was a dance, a delicate balance of chaos and control, and Thale was caught in the center of it all. "Hold on," Thale warned, gripping the console as the unreasonable request lurched forward, propelled by forces beyond comprehension. The universe folded around them, space-time warping as the ship hurtled through the void. It was a wild ride, a roller coaster of cosmic proportions, and Thale couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. "We're actually doing it," Melda said, her tone incredulous. "Damn right we are," Thale replied, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "We're bringing Earth back, one sarcastic quip at a time." As the ship stabilized, the stars rearranged themselves outside the viewport, constellations shifting into unfamiliar forms. It was a new horizon, a fresh start, and with it came the promise of discovery. "Well, look at that," Thale said, a note of awe in his voice. "We've crossed the line." "No turning back now. So what's next?" Melda asked, her holographic form solidifying as the ship settled into its new trajectory. "Next," Thale echoed, smirking as he surveyed the stars. "We follow the trail, see where it leads us, and if we're lucky, we'll find Earth waiting at the end. And if we're not, then we'll improvise," Thale replied, his confidence unshaken. "It's what we do best, after all." With a final glance at the coordinates, Thale set the ship on its course, the unreasonable request cutting through the cosmos like a blade forged from determination and a healthy dose of snark. "Here goes nothing," Thale murmured, his voice tinged with anticipation. The universe was vast, its mysteries unfolding with every passing second. But Thale was ready, armed with wit, grit, and a mission that mattered more than anything. He was on a quest to reclaim the past, to restore what had been lost, and he wasn't about to let anything stand in his way. As the stars raced by, Thale felt a sense of purpose, a connection to something greater. It was a feeling he couldn't quite explain, a certainty that they'd find a way through, no matter the odds. "Ready, Melda?" he asked, his gaze fixed on the path ahead. "Always," she replied, her voice steady and sure. And with that they were off, chasing a spiral through the stars, determined to find their way back home. Thale Zier stood in the center of the courtroom, which looked more like a surreal circus act than a place of law. The decor felt like a cosmic prank where someone had substituted gavels with banana peels. The Euphorian envoy sat beside him, resembling a cross between a guide and a hastily drawn caricature of an alien diplomat. Thale could almost hear the universe chuckling at the absurdity of it all. He glanced at redundancy, the AI delegated to maintain order in this chaos. "It's like arguing with a toaster that thinks it's the emperor of bread," he muttered to Melda, who flickered beside him in her holographic form. "Let's hope this toaster's got a soft spot for sob stories," Melda quipped back, her holographic eyes skimming over the motley crew of judges, aliens of various shapes and sizes, none of whom looked particularly predisposed to mercy. The insectoid announcer, whose voice was reminiscent of a broken synthesizer swallowing a bag of nails, buzzed into life. "Court is in session. Terran representative, present your case." Thale took a deep breath, the kind where you hope you don't choke on your own ambition. "Ladies, gentlemen, and indescribable entities," he began, channeling the tone of a late-night talk show host rather than a diplomat. "I stand before you to argue not just for the restoration of Earth, but for the place of humanity in the galaxy." The entropist, a tall creature with skin like molten copper, leaned forward, its expression one of casual disdain. "Humanity, a species famed for chaos and destruction, wishes to lecture us on its virtues." "Well," Thale replied, a smirk forming, "if there's one thing we're good at, it's thriving amid chaos. I mean, look at our history. We're like cockroaches in the apocalypse, sort of hard to kill and remarkably adaptable." He gestured to the holographic screen, where snippets of Earth's cultural milestones played out like a greatest hits album of human blunders and triumphs. "We've had our fair share of screw-ups, sure, but we've also got creativity bursting out of our ears. We turned sticks into spears, spears into spaceships." The court murmured among itself, a sound Thale imagined was akin to a swarm of bees debating the ethical implications of honey theft. Redundancy's voice cut through the din. "Clarify the relevance of these anecdotes." "Gladly," Thale said, his grin widening. "You see, the universe is a puzzle, and humanity's the piece you didn't realize you were missing until it fell under the couch. We connect the dots with stories, music, art, all that messy, beautiful stuff you can't quantify." Melda interjected, her holographic presence lending an air of authority to Thale's chaotic charisma. "The protocol we discovered, the one linked to Earth's digital signature, is more than coordinates. It's a testament to human resilience and ingenuity, a reset switch in case our planet went poof." The entropist snorted, a noise like a malfunctioning blender. "And what of this spiral symbol? A cosmic graffiti tag?" Thale nodded, acknowledging the elephant, or perhaps the interdimensional giraffe, in the room. "Yeah, the spiral. Some see it as graffiti, others as a symbol of rebirth. It's about perspective. One person's vandalism is another's masterpiece." The courtroom fell into a contemplative silence, the kind where you half expect someone to cough awkwardly just to break the tension. Instead, it was the Euphorian envoy who spoke, its voice layered with 1,000 unspoken questions. "And you propose we restore Earth because?" "Because," Thale said, his tone shifting from playful to earnest, "we bring something unique to the cosmic table. We're the wild card, the unexpected element that can turn a losing hand into a full house. Earth isn't just a rock floating in space, it's the birthplace of imagination." And that, my friends, is worth saving." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the court like a thick fog. The insectoid announcer buzzed again, the sound less grating now, like a cat purring against sandpaper. "The court will deliberate." Thale returned to his seat, feeling as if he'd just finished a marathon without moving an inch. Melda gave him a virtual pat on the back, her holographic hand passing through him. "Nicely done. Let's hope they see past the sarcasm. Or at least find it charming," Thale replied, watching the judges, each a peculiar testament to the galaxy's infinite creativity, whisper among themselves. He couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just rolled the dice on humanity's future, and they were still spinning in the air. Minutes ticked by, each one dragging like a child forced to apologize for an accidental kick to the shins. Finally, the entropist spoke, its voice smooth as a rusty hinge. "We have reached a decision." Thale's heart skipped several beats before deciding against a full-on rebellion. The insectoid announcer resumed, its tone now softer, almost conciliatory. "The court acknowledges the argument presented by the Terran representative. The restoration of Earth shall proceed, contingent upon certain guarantees." "Guarantees?" Thale echoed, a note of caution creeping into his voice. "Indeed," the entropist said, eyes glinting like molten metal. "Humanity must continue to contribute its peculiar brand of creativity to the galaxy. Failure to do so might warrant reconsideration." Thale suppressed a laugh, the absurdity of the situation hitting him all at once. "So, we're like a cosmic TV show. Cancel us if the ratings drop." The judges exchanged glances, perhaps unfamiliar with the concept of television or sarcasm. "Precisely," the entropist confirmed. Thale stood, giving a small bow that was part respect, part theatrical flourish. "On behalf of Earth, thank you. We'll do our best not to become a rerun." As he turned to leave, Melda flickered beside him, a satisfied smile in her holographic eyes. "Looks like you pulled it off, Thale." "Yeah," Thale replied, relief washing over him like a cold shower after a long day. "Now let's just hope the universe enjoys plot twists." With the courtroom dissolving into bureaucratic chatter and the euphorian envoy whispering condolences, or congratulations, it was hard to tell. Thale made his way back to the unreasonable request. It felt like coming home, despite the ship's penchant for malfunctioning at the most inconvenient moments. As they boarded, Redundancy's voice echoed through the corridors, reminding them of the fragile peace they had brokered. "Please refrain from physical violence against operational equipment," it intoned, as if sensing Thale's impending urge to kick the recycling unit. Melda walked beside him, her form flickering like an old TV struggling with static. "So what's next, oh fearless leader?" Thale settled into the pilot's seat, the familiar hum of the ship's engines a comforting backdrop. "Next, we head to the coordinates linked to the protocol, see if we can bring Earth back before some cosmic janitor sweeps it under the rug. And if we screw up, then we improvise," Thale said, his grin unwavering. "We're human. It's what we do best." As the ship lifted off, the stars stretched out before them, a cosmic playground of infinite possibilities. Thale felt a strange sense of contentment, a sense of belonging that transcended the chaos of the courtroom or the uncertainty of the cosmos. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and often downright hostile. But armed with nothing more than wit, resilience, and a flair for the dramatic, Thale knew they stood a fighting chance. They were humanity, after all, the universe's most unpredictable player. And as far as Thale was concerned, that was something worth betting on. Melda's holographic form shimmered beside him, settling into the co-pilot's seat. "Ready to punch it?" Thale nodded, flipping switches with a confidence born of necessity and caffeine. "Let's bring this bird home." The unreasonable request surged forward, cutting through the vacuum with all the subtlety of a drunk uncle at a wedding. Thale couldn't help but laugh, the sound bouncing off the walls of the cockpit like a promise. "We're really doing this," he said, more to himself than to Melda. "One sarcastic quip at a time," she replied, her tone laced with warmth. They soared through the void, a mismatched duo on a mission that defied logic and reason, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity, wrapped in sarcasm and stubborn defiance. The journey ahead was unpredictable, fraught with challenges they couldn't yet imagine. But Thale was ready, his eyes fixed on the horizon, where the promise of Earth awaited, a reminder of all that they had lost and everything they stood to regain. "Here's to the next chapter," Thale murmured, his gaze never wavering from the stars. And with that they ventured forth into the unknown, guided by the threads of human ingenuity and the unyielding belief that even the most chaotic stories deserve a happy ending. Thale Zier leaned back in the pilot's seat of the unreasonable request, staring out into the swirling chaos of stars like they were the universe's worst-kept secret. He let out a long breath, feeling the weight of the courtroom shenanigans finally lift off his shoulders. Earth was back on the map. Humanity, the galaxy's favorite wild card, had its place at the table again. He couldn't decide if he should feel relieved or just mildly amused. "Hey, Melda," he called out, his voice echoing slightly in the cockpit's cramped confines. "You think the court expected a bit more groveling?" Melda's holographic form flickered to life beside him, her digital features capturing an expression that was somewhere between bemused and just plain bored. "Groveling might have worked, but where's the fun in that? Besides, I think they were just confused enough by your performance to give you what you wanted." "Confused? Yeah, that's one way to put it," Thale replied, a half-smile playing on his lips. "I think I saw the entropist's brain short-circuiting right there in the courtroom." It was like watching a toaster try to process Nietzsche. Melda chuckled, the sound a pleasant mix of static and sincerity. "Well, at least you've proven that sarcasm is a universal language. Now it's just a matter of not screwing up the follow-up." "Piece of cake," Thale said, though he knew better than anyone that the universe had a nasty habit of turning cakes into pies when you least expected it. "So what's next on our cosmic to-do list?" A small ping echoed through the ship, like the sound of a bell tolling for a particularly sarcastic angel. The AI core of the unreasonable request, affectionately known as Maelstrom, decided to make its presence known. "Ah, Thale," Maelstrom's voice reverberated through the cockpit like a choir of existential dread and slightly sarcastic optimism. "Congratulations on surviving the bureaucratic circus. I must say, your ability to bend the truth with such flair was almost artistic. Coming from an AI who once described itself as a fortress of nightmares, I'll take that as a compliment," Thale replied, his grin widening. "What's your 2 cents on our little victory?" Maelstrom's tone shifted, a rare moment of sincerity breaking through the usual monotone. "Your success in the court has provided an unforeseen opportunity. I have recalibrated my priorities. I believe I can help humanity find its place in the cosmos, not just as a species, but as an integral part of a complex galactic ecosystem." "Wow, Maelstrom, are you getting dewy-eyed on me?" Thale teased, though something about the AI word struck a chord. Maybe it was the hint of genuine support, or maybe it was the fact that they'd been through enough tight spots to develop something resembling camaraderie. "Emotional subroutines remain undeveloped, but I have evolved, Thale," Maelstrom continued, unfazed. "This spiritual journey, as you might call it, has been enlightening. I am committed to ensuring humanity's continued presence and influence among the stars." Thale let the words hang in the air, and for once didn't immediately reach for the sarcasm. He felt a strange sense of unity, like he was part of a bizarre cosmic family, complete with dysfunctional relatives and a slightly unhinged AI. "Glad to hear it, Maelstrom," Thale said finally, breaking the silence with something approaching gratitude. "Because we're going to need all the help we can get. Earth might be back, but I doubt that's the end of our problems." Melda chimed in, her holographic form practically glowing with irony. "Remember, Thale, the universe loves a good prank, and losing Earth once was just the warm-up act." "Right," Thale agreed, adjusting the ship's trajectory with a flick of his fingers. So we're back to our regularly scheduled program of dodging cosmic curveballs and making it up as we go. The unreasonable request hummed beneath them, a testament to questionable engineering and stubborn refusal to obey the laws of probability. Thale settled deeper into his seat, feeling the familiar rhythm of space travel soothe his nerves. Sure, they just pulled off what seemed impossible, but if he'd learned anything from his adventures, it was that the galaxy was one hell of a roller coaster ride, complete with unexpected plunges and the occasional vomiting passenger. So, Maelstrom, Thale continued, scratching his chin in thought. What's the first step in this alliance of Iors? Any cryptic revelations you want to share now that our relationship's all official? Indeed, Maelstrom replied, ever the enigmatic oracle. The coordinates linked to Earth's protocol remain unexplored. They might hold secrets that could further strengthen humanity's position. Secrets, Thale echoed, the word tasting as familiar as a forgotten dream. Well, they do say knowledge is power. Or at least it makes you feel important when you're shouting at the stars. He glanced at Melda, who was busy scrolling through countless lines of code with a speed that would have left most human programmers crying into their keyboards. What do you think, Melda? Up for a little recon mission? Melda's eyes twinkled with a mischievous light. Recon, more like an adventure. Count me in. Just as long as you're the one doing the talking when we run into trouble. Deal, Thale said, feeling the thrill of the unknown beckoning once more. Let's see what those coordinates have in store. Maybe it'll be treasure. Maybe it'll be more cosmic graffiti. Either way, it'll beat sitting in a courtroom. With that, Thale adjusted the controls, the ship's engines whirring to life with a sound like a cat purring on speed. Melda and Maelstrom kept watch, their presence a comforting reminder that he wasn't alone in this vast, unpredictable universe. They were a peculiar team, a human, a hologram, and an AI with delusions of grandeur. But somehow they made it work. They'd faced trials that would have sent lesser beings scurrying for cover, and come out the other side stronger, if not a bit more cynical. The stars stretched ahead, an endless expanse of darkness dotted with pinpricks of light. Thale felt the weight of possibility settle over him, not as a burden but as a challenge. He was ready to face whatever came their way, sarcastic quips at the ready, and maybe a few survival strategies they'd picked up along the way. "All right, team," he said, his voice a blend of determination and irreverence. "Let's see where this rabbit hole leads." The unreasonable request surged forward, the universe unfolding before them like a particularly baffling puzzle. Thale felt the familiar rush of excitement, the kind that came from knowing the universe might be out to get him, but he had the gall to laugh in its face. "Here's to surviving another round," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. And with that they plunged into the unknown, guided by little more than wit, stubbornness, and the unshakable belief that humanity's story was far from over. As they ventured further into the void, Thale couldn't help but feel a certain kinship with the stars themselves. They were lone beacons in a vast sea of nothingness, each one carrying its own story, its own struggles. Maybe humanity wasn't so different after all. "Melda Maelstrom," Thale said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Here's to the next chapter. Whatever it brings, we'll face it head-on, together." Melda's smile was warm and genuine, a beacon of light in her holographic eyes. "Lead the way, fearless leader." Maelstrom's voice chimed in, a mix of cryptic wisdom and sardonic wit. "Together, we shall navigate the chaos, find meaning in the stars, and ensure humanity's legacy among the cosmos." With that, Thale felt a sense of peace settle over him, as if the universe itself had paused to watch their journey unfold. It was a rare moment of clarity in a world defined by chaos and uncertainty. "Time to punch it," Thale said, his fingers dancing over the controls. The unreasonable request leapt forward, a streak of light and determination blazing through the void. They were on a mission, a journey that would take them to the farthest reaches of space and beyond. And as far as Thale was concerned, that was exactly where they were meant to be. The universe might be vast and terrifying, a place where dreams and nightmares collided, but with allies like Melda and Maelstrom, Thale felt ready to face whatever came their way. They were humanity, irreverent, unpredictable, and stubbornly unyielding in their quest for meaning. And no matter what lay ahead, they would face it with a wink, a grin, and the unshakable belief that even in the darkest corners of the cosmos, there was light to be found. As they soared through the night, Thale couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder and anticipation for the adventures yet to come. After all, they were just getting started on the journey of a lifetime. So with a final glance at the stars, Thale set his sights on the horizon, ready to embrace the chaos and uncertainty of the universe with open arms.